Tonight you are above it all. 52 floors above the street. 52 floors above the noise and the movement and the things that have been moving through the city since the third day. Up here, the air is different. The glass is thick and continuous, running floor to ceiling along the western wall, and the wind comes in from that direction in long, unhurried movements, pressing against the windows with a low, sustained sound that fills the room the way a held note fills a space, not loudly, not obtrusively, but completely. It occupies every corner of the room. It makes the silence inside feel deliberate, chosen, protected. Like the building itself is breathing in long and measured intervals, and you are breathing with it. Below you, the city burns in places. Not everywhere. In patches, scattered across the skyline the way embers scatter when something large and established has been disrupted. Not a single catastrophe, but a series of smaller ones, each finding its own fuel and its own rate of consumption. Orange light flickers and shifts and rises against the underside of the cloud cover, turning those low clouds a deep, muted amber that moves when the wind moves and settles when the wind pauses. From this height in this room through this glass, the fires look almost like something you might have watched deliberately once. From a rooftop bar, another evening entirely, a glass in your hand, the city spreading out in all directions below you like something designed to be witnessed. The fires did not feel like that on the first day. They feel like that now from here tonight, because distance does something to the appearance of catastrophe that proximity cannot. Fires do not reach this high. The sounds from the street do not reach this high. The things moving through the streets below cannot follow you to this floor. Up here there is only the wind against the glass and the long amber light that lies across the concrete floor in slow, wavering planes, and the particular quality of silence that exists 52 floors above a city that has stopped functioning in the way cities are built to function. It is not the silence of emptiness. It is the silence of height, of separation, of a space that has been claimed and held. You found this place on the second day, when the streets became something you could no longer move through without becoming part of what was moving through them. You came up in the elevator before the building's power went, and you did not come back down. In the days since, you have been learning the apartment the way you learn any space that is new to you, by moving through it with attention, by understanding what it offers and what it requires, by adjusting it gradually to the shape of what you need from it. You have been making it yours in every practical way. A person can make a space their own, when the circumstances remove the usual timeline for such things, and compress months of habitation into days of necessity. Tonight the work of this day is finished. The door is sealed. The elevator shafts are dark and locked. The rooftop hatch is weighted and latched. Every task on the mental list you carry through each day has been completed and set aside. There is no decision to make before morning, no system to check, no calculation to revise. You are here, 52 floors above everything that has changed, and this building, this floor, this room, this glass between you and the wind, is as safe as anywhere in this city tonight. Find the position your body is already moving toward. Not a deliberate one, not a corrected or improved one, simply the shape your body makes when it is allowed to stop performing and start resting. Notice that shape and let it settle. Let the weight of your body distribute across the surface beneath you, not shifted or adjusted, just released. Let it press down through the mattress, through the frame, through the floor, downward through 52 floors of concrete and steel and accumulated structure, until it reaches something that holds all of it without effort. Let the breath come in without any instruction. Let it arrive on its own, in its own time, in its own measure, and let it leave a little more slowly than it came. There is no pattern to keep, no count to maintain, no technique to execute correctly. Only the exhale being given a little more room than the inhale, a small additional release, a slightly longer letting go, which is the only adjustment the body needs to begin moving toward rest. The chest rises and falls. The abdomen lifts slightly with each inward breath and releases. The wind continues outside. These things are happening simultaneously without requiring anything from you. Feel the weight of your body in this moment. Begin where the head meets the pillow, the back of the skull, the slight give of the surface, The way the head has been held upright all day by the neck and can now allow something else to do that work. Move down through the shoulders, which are broad points of contact with the mattress, which have been carrying the day in the way shoulders carry days, slightly raised, slightly braced, slightly ready. Let them move a few millimeters toward the surface. Not a deliberate action, a permission. Continue down through the length of the back, each vertebra present and accounted for. The spine that has been the vertical axis of everything you have done today now able to hand that function to the mattress and lie there without a job. The hips, which are the heaviest point of contact, the place where the body's weight concentrates when horizontal. Let them sink. The legs, from the backs of the thighs down through the calves to the heels. Let them press down and stay there. Feel where you are heaviest. Those are the places that have been working longest. The mind tends to locate effort in the hands, the legs, the visible working parts of the body, but the true weight of a day like this one accumulates in the parts that never stop, the jaw, which holds tension invisibly through every hour. The forehead, which has been carrying a particular set of lines since the first alert appeared on your phone 3 days ago. The space behind the eyes, which has been processing everything seen from the window and everything encountered in every room of this apartment in every hour of these 3 days. Let these places soften now. There is no benefit to holding them any longer tonight. The information has been processed. The decisions have been made. The work has been done. Let the face release. The wind moves against the glass. The amber light moves across the floor. The building holds you above all of it, high and dry and sealed, and the story of how you came to be here begins. You did not plan for this. Nobody planned for this in the specific way that would have made any real difference. 3 days ago you were moving through your morning the way you had moved through every morning for years, with the particular combination of habit and mild intention that fills ordinary days. The coffee making itself in the kitchen while you stood at the counter with your phone, scanning the morning the way people scan mornings, looking for anything that required a response and finding mostly things that could wait. The city was visible through the penthouse windows the way it was always visible. A Tuesday in October, overcast and unremarkable, the streets below carrying their ordinary traffic in their ordinary directions. You had a call to make before 11. You had a document that needed another draft. You had the ordinary machinery of a life that did not know what was coming for it and would not have been equipped to use the knowledge if it had. The alerts arrived in the way that alerts arrive, as small interruptions stacked at the top of the screen, easy to dismiss, designed to be noticed briefly and moved past. You read the first one with mild attention. Something was happening in the eastern part of the city, near the hospital district. The word the alert used was disturbances, which is the word used when the real word has not yet been agreed upon. You checked the news application. The coverage was already fragmented, multiple outlets running different versions of events that seemed to be developing faster than any organized reporting could track. Correspondents contradicting each other from positions half a block apart. Official statements that were already out of date by the time they were issued. Amateur footage from people filming from their windows, shaky, poorly framed, but showing something. You put the phone face down on the counter. You stood at the window. You looked at the street below. The street below looked normal. And then, for a period of perhaps 4 or 5 minutes, it continued to look normal. Traffic moving. A woman pushing a pram on the opposite pavement. A delivery driver double-parked and hauling boxes. The unremarkable mid-morning of a city at work. You were about to turn away and make your coffee and return to the document when something changed in the street below in a way that did not immediately announce what it was. A quality of movement. A direction that a group of people were taking, all at once. That was not the direction of people going to work or running errands or doing any of the ordinary things that populate a city street at this hour. They were moving away from something. And then there was a sound, not loud, not clear at this height, more a vibration in the quality of the morning than a specific identifiable noise. And then there were more people, and they were all moving in the same direction. And the word that your body registered before your mind had framed it was wrong. Something was wrong. The street below was wrong in a way that the phone alerts and the fragmented news coverage had not yet made specific, but that the body understood through some older and more direct channel than language. You did not go to the elevator. You did not go to the lobby, something that operates below the level of decision, some part of the brain that is responsible for orienting the body in space and keeping it away from edges and drops, said, "Stay up. Stay where you are. Wait until you understand what is happening before you commit to a direction, because a direction chosen wrong in the next few hours may not be correctable." You moved back from the window. You made the coffee because your hands needed something to do. You stood at the kitchen counter and you watched the news on your phone, and you listened to the quality of what was coming from outside, not specific sounds, not words or distinct noises, but the ambient register of the city, which was changing in the way that weather changes, gradually and then all at once. By noon, the power in the building had begun to flicker. By midday, the emergency broadcast had replaced every channel, looping a message about sheltering in place that was being updated at intervals of decreasing frequency. By mid-afternoon, the first fire had started to the east, a column of dark smoke that rose straight up in the still air before the wind caught it and carried it north. You watched it from the living room window. You tracked its growth over the course of an hour. It was not a small fire. It was the kind of fire that happens when something large and full of fuel has been allowed to burn without intervention. By evening, the streets below were not streets in the way streets are designed to be used. By midnight, the second fire had started, further east, behind the financial towers, and the sky over that part of the city was orange in a way that made the underside of the clouds look like an illustration of something. By the time the gray of the early morning began to come in through the windows, you had understood clearly, without drama, in the calm and final way one understands a mathematical result, that you were not leaving this building through any exit that required you to pass through what the lower floors and the street had become. You were staying, and staying without a plan is only waiting, so you stopped waiting and began to work. The first thing you attended to was the question of access. The building had 2 elevator shafts and 1 stairwell connecting to this floor, and all 3 of them were potential entries if something in the building below began to search for a way up. You addressed the elevators first because they were the most mechanically straightforward. In the utility corridor near the service entrance, there was a panel you had noticed on your first day in the apartment without registering its significance. A gray metal box with a key switch and a row of circuit breakers for the building's mechanical systems on this floor. The key switch controlled power to the elevator motors. You turned it to the off position and felt the change in the building immediately, a shift in the ambient hum of the structure, a small subtraction. The elevators were dead. The shafts were dark. You tried the elevator doors from the corridor side. They would not move. You stood with your ear against the cool metal of the door for several minutes, listening to the shaft, listening for anything that might be moving in the building below. There was nothing. There has been nothing since. The stairwell door you addressed with more deliberation, because a door can be breached in ways that an elevator cannot. The original lock was a standard commercial mechanism, and it functioned correctly, which gave you a foundation. From the maintenance storage room on the rooftop level, a space you had explored on the first morning, systematically, as part of your initial assessment of everything this building offered, you had brought down a length of channel steel, a steel bar bracket of the kind used to secure fire doors in commercial buildings, and the appropriate anchor hardware. You set the bracket into the floor on the apartment side of the stairwell door and fitted the bar across it. The door, which opened inward into the stairwell, now had to overcome the bar before it could move. To that you added 2 lengths of steel cable, heavy gauge, from the same supply cache, looped through the door handle and run back to wall anchors that had previously held a large framed photograph in the entry hall. The photograph leans against the wall in the storage bedroom now. The anchors hold the cables. The cables hold the door. You have tested the assembly 3 times, pulling against it from the stairwell side, something you could only do for the first test, before you sealed yourself back in, and it does not move. It does not give. It is not moving. The rooftop hatch you waited from this side. On the terrace, positioned near the hatch with their ornamental olive trees already removed and placed in the far corner, there had been two large stone planters, rectangular, deep, constructed from some kind of reconstituted stone that gave them a weight entirely out of proportion to their size. Under ordinary circumstances, they require two people to move with any confidence. You moved one of them alone, across the terracotta tiles in the dark of the early morning of the second day, pushing it from behind with your back against it, and your feet finding purchase in the grout lines of the tile. It took 20 minutes. You set it over the hatch and verified that its weight was distributed across the frame and not the hatch itself. Then you locked the hatch from this side with its own hardware and left the planter above it. Nothing is opening that hatch from the rooftop. With the entries addressed, you turned to what you had. This was the next discipline, not what you wished you had, not what would have been useful to have brought if you had known, but what was actually present in this apartment and what could be made of it. The kitchen had been stocked by people who expected to return within a week. This was visible in the composition of what they had left, a pragmatic combination of basics and convenience items, heavy on things that keep and light on things that require effort. You went through every cabinet in sequence, beginning at the top left corner of the kitchen and working right across the top row, then dropping to the second row, then the third, in a systematic grid that ensured nothing was missed. Everything came out onto the kitchen island before any of it went back. You laid it out in categories, tins of preserved protein along the back edge of the island, fish, meat, legumes. Dry carbohydrate goods to the left, rice, pasta, oats, a large bag of lentils, 2 bags of dried chickpeas. Long-life packaged items to the right, crackers, dried fruit, nuts, protein powder in a large tub that would extend the protein supply significantly. Fresh items at the front, needing immediate use. Condiments and supplements and cooking basics in a separate group. You discarded what had already turned or would turn within a day and would provide nothing. Everything else you returned to the shelves in a specific order, a logical order, an order that made sense for a person retrieving items one at a time in low light without wanting to search. Labels facing out, like items grouped together, proteins together, carbohydrates together, the things you would use most often on the most accessible shelves. When you were finished, you stood back and looked at the kitchen shelves, and they looked entirely different than they had before you started. Not more or less full, approximately the same food, but organized in a way that communicated something about intention, about the difference between a kitchen being used and a kitchen being managed. The wine refrigerator was a tall unit set flush into the wall beside the island, glass-fronted, built for a different kind of abundance. It held several dozen bottles in a temperature-controlled environment that had been running continuously since before you arrived. You emptied it in 2 sessions, carrying the bottles to the dining table where they now stand in a row, not for drinking, or not primarily, though a bottle opened carefully on a difficult evening is not out of the question. The refrigerator itself, once empty, you filled with water, every vessel that could hold water and be closed. Bottles from the pantry, rinsed and filled from the tap while the building's water pressure held. The large stockpot from the cabinet below the hob. 2 mixing bowls sealed with cling film and weighted with plates. A ceramic baking dish with its own lid, the seal reinforced with electrical tape. The pressure in the taps dropped on the second afternoon without warning, the flow going thin over the course of perhaps 20 minutes and then stopping entirely, and what you had filled by that point was what you had. You counted the total volume. You set a daily allowance for drinking and cooking and minimal washing. You marked the level inside the wine refrigerator with tape, a horizontal strip at the current level, the date written on it in permanent marker. Each evening you check the level against the mark. Each evening it is where the calculation says it should be. The tape and the mark and the daily check are a small ritual of accountability that costs almost nothing and provides a disproportionate amount of reassurance. The bathtub in the main bathroom you had filled on the first night, the taps running at full pressure for the better part of an hour. It holds a significant reserve untouched, covered with the shower curtain weighted at the edges, sitting quietly in the bathroom in the way that a held breath sits inside the chest. For use only if everything else runs low. You have not needed it. Knowing it exists changes the texture of the water situation from precarious to manageable, and that change matters more than the specific volume of the reserve. The rooftop has become a place you visit in the early morning, before the light is fully established, in the quietest hour of the 24. You go up through the hatch, removing the weighted items one at a time and setting them aside, opening the hatch slowly and emerging into the pre-dawn dark of the open roof. The city is visible from up here in a way that is different from the window view, larger, more encompassing, the full circle of the skyline available rather than the western and southern portions visible from the apartment. You do not spend long on the roof looking at the city. You do what you came to do. 2 of the ornamental planters, the ones that held grasses you cleared out and mounded in the corner, now hold turned and prepared soil. On the second morning, working in the dark with a headlamp you found in the maintenance storage, you used a trowel from the same source to break up the compacted root-bound soil left by the grasses, turning it over and aerating it and removing the larger root masses until what remained was workable. Into this, you seeded 2 packets from the kitchen drawer, herbs and mixed salad greens, the kind that come with a subscription and accumulate, unopened through the ordinary busy months of a life that assumed it would get around to them. You pressed the seeds in at the depth suggested on the packets. You watered them from one of the measured water allowances for that day, which you had set aside for this purpose. They will not produce for weeks. A full harvest is months away even under good conditions, and the rooftop is not a controlled environment. You know this. You are not deluded about the timeline, but the act of planting them is not about the harvest in the immediate sense. It is about the existence of a harvest as a concept, a point in the future that you are moving toward and that is moving toward you, a reciprocal arrangement between you and something living that will require your continued presence to honor. The seeds in the ground are a commitment. They are a reason to be here in the morning. The drainage system on the rooftop you studied on the 3rd morning, lying flat on the tiles in the pre-dawn dark, tracing the path the channels take with a flashlight, learning where the water goes when rain falls on this surface. The guttering runs to 4 downpipes at the corners of the building. You could not redirect all of them, but one, the northeastern corner pipe, running clear and unobstructed down the external face of the building, you redirected with a length of aluminium gutter section taken from the maintenance storage, cutting across its path at the rooftop level, and running it instead into the largest planter base you could position beneath the new outlet. When it rains, the northeast quadrant of the rooftop will drain into your collection point. Tonight, with the sky thickening from the west and the wind carrying the particular moisture of incoming rain, you believe it will rain before morning. Every decision made in these 3 days has moved in a single direction, toward duration, toward a version of being here that extends past the emergency phase into something more sustained. Not comfort, comfort is a secondary consideration, but continuity. The capacity to be here next week and the week after, thinking clearly, in reasonable health, with sufficient resources to make reasonable decisions. That is the architecture of what you have been building in this apartment, and tonight, on the 3rd night, it is standing. The penthouse is dim. You turned the overhead lights off an hour ago and have not turned them back on. The generator on the rooftop runs for 2 hours in the evening, a disciplined window that you have established and held to. It went quiet at 9. The 2 candles on the kitchen island are the room's only direct light source now, their flames small and steady in the absence of any draft, their glow reaching the near countertops and the edge of the dining table and fatting before it reaches the windows. The windows provide their own illumination, the city below pushing its amber light upward through the low cloud, through the glass, across the concrete floor and slow, wavering shapes that move when the wind moves the clouds and settle when the wind pauses. The two largest fires, in the eastern part of the city somewhere behind the financial district's dark towers, have been burning since the second night, and the light they produce has become a feature of the apartment's evenings. You have stopped assessing it as a threat. From this height, it is simply what the city looks like at night now. A different kind of city light. Not the grid of office windows and street lamps that filled these windows before, but something older and more variable, a city lit by its own burning. You are at the main window. You have been here for some minutes, standing without a particular purpose beyond the standing, your hands loose at your sides. The glass in front of you is cool and solid, and your reflection in it is faint, barely visible, almost transparent, the burning city showing through you as though you are a part of the skyline rather than something separate from it. You are not part of it. You are above it. You are looking down at it from a position it cannot reach. Your eyes are resting on the distance, not on the details of what is visible below, not on anything in the streets, not on anything moving, but on the far skyline, the distant shapes of buildings against the amber sky, the muted glow of the clouds. Looking at something far away is a form of rest for the eyes that looking at something close cannot provide. The focal muscles release. The field of vision widens. The peripheral world comes into awareness without demanding attention. You turn from the window and move into the room. The apartment has become yours in a way that has surprised you with its speed. 3 days is very little time in which to make a space feel inhabited. Under ordinary circumstances, a place takes months to feel like it belongs to you, the slow accumulation of your objects and habits and daily patterns filling the rooms until they carry your presence even when you are not in them. But these circumstances are not ordinary, and the process has been compressed. Every room of this apartment has been touched and assessed and adjusted. Every surface has been used for something purposeful. The kitchen island carries the notepad and the system. The storage room carries the overflow. The utility corridor carries the cable rigging. The rooftop carries the planters. Your presence is in all of it. The apartment knows you now. The kitchen is where you spend the first portion of every evening. The island is the administrative center of the operation. The notepad in the corner, updated each morning and evening with the inventory figures, the count correct to the last 10. The organization of the shelves has held for 3 days exactly as you arranged it on the first day, which means the system is working. Labels outward, like items grouped. The most needed things at the most accessible heights. When you reach for something now, you reach correctly on the first attempt without searching. This is a small thing, but a functional one. The mental overhead of a disorganized supply is a real cost in a situation where mental resources are finite and need to be conserved. The wine refrigerator holds the water with the tape mark inside. You check this every evening as part of the routine. Open the door. Note the level against the mark. Close the door. Tonight it is where it should be. The stockpot and the mixing bowls and the baking dish are arrayed along the back of the counter in their sealed positions, unchanged and undisturbed. The total volume of water you have is a known quantity, and the daily allowance keeps the known quantity stable and adequate. You have not needed to revise the calculation downward. You have not needed to use the bathtub reserve. The storage room carries a particular atmosphere. You open the door and stand in the entrance and look at the shelves you built from the items you found. A disassembled bed frame serving as shelving, 2 lengths of timber from the maintenance storage laid across the frame rails to create additional surfaces, and the supplies arranged on them. And there is something in this room that is different from the feeling in any other room in the apartment. Something that is close to satisfaction, but is larger and less personal than satisfaction. It is the feeling of having converted a problem into a structure, of having looked at a situation that had no margin and found the margin inside it and expanded it deliberately. The shelves are full. Every item is counted and placed. In a world that has lost most of its certainty, these shelves represent a small zone of known quantities. That matters immensely. The study is dark and quiet and windowless, which are the qualities that make it valuable at particular moments of the day. There are times when the view from the main windows is too much to hold, not frightening, exactly, not unbearable, but requiring a kind of continuous processing that exhausts something in the mind after a while. The study has no exterior glass and the walls on all sides are solid, and the room is simply a room, the simplest kind of room, containing a desk and a chair and the small battery radio on the desk and the red power light of the radio, which is the only light in the room when the door is closed. The radio cycles through its frequencies in the background, static and the occasional looping broadcast that stopped being updated a day ago, and you leave it running because the sound it makes is a form of company. Not conversation, not information currently, just evidence that the device is working, that the frequency is active, that the world outside is still generating signals even if those signals are presently only echoes of themselves. The bedroom you have made in the same way each morning, duvet smoothed, pillow positioned, the small stack of books on the nightstand arranged in the same order. The first morning you made the bed without deciding to, the hands moving by habit before the mind had caught up to what they were doing, and having made it, you understood why you had. A made bed is a commitment to the continuity of days. It says, I intend to return to this room tonight. I intend to be in this building in the morning. I intend to continue. Under ordinary circumstances, this is not a statement that requires a physical expression. Under these circumstances, it is the most important thing you can say to yourself each morning, and the made bed says it without language. You move through the apartment now in the way you have moved through it each evening, not checking from anxiety but touching from care. Your hand on the stairwell cables, which do not give. Your fingers against the elevator panel, which is cold and dark and silent. Your palm flat on the rooftop hatch, which does not move. Your hand along each window sill in sequence, feeling the cold glass, the solid continuous surface, the weather on the other side and the warmth on this side and the perfect boundary between them. Everything intact, everything in its position, everything held. You go to the kitchen and you eat. The evening meal is simple, and this is by design, not by limitation. The more complex preparations, the things that take more than one pot and require attention and produce a particular smell that fills the apartment in a specific way, you hold in reserve for the days when morale will need a more deliberate intervention. Those days will come. Tonight, a can of soup heated on the camp stove over a low and measured flame, the kind you found in the utility closet in a bag of camping equipment that the building's maintenance staff had kept for reasons you will never know and are profoundly grateful for. You heat the soup slowly, watching the surface of it, not looking at your phone, not doing anything else simultaneously. When it reaches temperature, you pour it into the bowl. You carry the bowl to the island and you eat standing up, which is how you have eaten all 3 evenings, and you eat slowly, 1 spoonful at a time, tasting what each spoonful contains. The salt of it, the slight sweetness of the vegetables, the warmth of it going down. These are real things in a present moment. The practice of noticing them is the practice of being in the present moment rather than in the future or the past, and the present moment in this apartment on this floor is a manageable place to be. You rinse the bowl with a measured pour of water, working the cloth around its interior until it is clean. You dry it. You return it to its position on the shelf, ready for tomorrow. You blow out 1 candle and the room shifts, the amber from the city coming forward, filling the space that the candle's light had been occupying. You stand in the middle of the room for a moment, in the amber and the dark and the moving light from 52 floors below, in the quiet that is yours. Then you take the remaining candle and carry it toward the bedroom. The bedroom is the quietest room in the penthouse. Its windows face south, toward the river, away from the larger fires, and the light that comes through them is the softest version of the city's ambient glow, diffused through a greater thickness of cloud and atmosphere, a general muted warmth rather than the more direct amber of the western and eastern windows. The room at this hour has a particular quality of enclosure. The candle on the nightstand adds its small, local warmth to the cooler, broader glow from the south windows, and together They give the room the feeling of something held inside itself. A space with a threshold. A room that is different from the rest of the apartment, in a way that the rest of the apartment is not different from itself. You sit on the edge of the bed. You remove your boots slowly, setting each one beside the nightstand in the same position you set them last night and the night before. Right beside left, toes toward the window. This small repetition has become part of the evening in a way you did not expect when you first did it. The third time you do anything deliberately, it begins to be a habit. The fourth time it begins to be a practice. These small, repeated acts are the joints of the structure you are building, the points where the days connect to each other, the evidence that today follows yesterday and tomorrow will follow today. Your hands rest open in your lap. You look at them for a moment as you have found yourself looking at them each evening. What they have done today. What they have done in 3 days. The elevator panel, the cable rigging, the soil on the rooftop, the careful measured pour of water from vessel to vessel, the inventory of the kitchen shelves which you ran twice on the first day to be certain, the sealing of the storage room, the assessment of the maintenance supplies, the 45 minutes you spent on the rooftop on the first morning identifying every potential vulnerability and deciding how to address each one. 3 days of hands-on continuous work, alone, without assistance, without the possibility of asking anyone else to confirm that the decision you had made was the right one. Every decision yours, every action yours, every consequence yours alone. They are quiet hands now. Let them rest. Set them with their palms turned upward, fingers uncurled and lying naturally against the blanket. Let whatever tension remains in them drain out through the palms and into the surface beneath. There is nothing further required of these hands tonight. You lie back. The pillow receives your head with a softness that is particular to something that has already taken your shape. Not a new surface, but a surface that has already been broken in by you, adjusted by the nights you have already spent in this room. The mattress accepts your weight and adjusts and settles. You feel the full length of your body against the surface. Head, shoulders, back, hips, legs, all of it in contact, all of it supported, none of it required to maintain itself against gravity. Your shoulders are still holding something. The habit of readiness does not release immediately. It has been 3 days of continuous readiness, and the body does not simply set that down when the head touches the pillow. Bring your attention to the shoulders. Not to relax them through effort is the wrong direction, but to observe them and offer them the information that the door is held, the hatch is weighted, the shafts are dark, and there is nothing in this building that needs your shoulders to be raised right now. Let them receive this information. Let them drop a few millimeters toward the mattress, toward the surface that is doing this work instead of them, and release the small additional tension they have been carrying that is no longer serving any purpose. Your chest rises as you breathe in. It settles as you breathe out. The rhythm is already slower than it was when you lay down. The body moves toward rest when the circumstances for rest are present, and the circumstances here are present. The door is sealed. The floor is yours. There is nothing approaching and nothing needed. The body knows this even when the mind is still processing the data of the day, still running through the inventory figures and the structural assessments and the morning task list, and the body's knowledge goes about its work regardless. Feel the breath as it passes, the slight coolness of the air as it enters the nose, the warmth of the air as it leaves the mouth, having been inside the body, having exchanged what it came in with for what the body has produced. In and out. The chest a small rising and falling. The abdomen a secondary motion, softer, more interior. The rhythm is finding itself. And then outside, the rain begins. You hear it before you see it. A sound that starts so lightly it might be something else. The very first drops against the glass, individual and distinct, each one a small separate contact. Then more, and the individual sounds merge into a collective one. And then the rain is fully present, settled into its own continuous pattern against the south window, even and unhurried. the particular clean sound of rainfall at altitude where no gutters or awnings intervene, and the drops meet the glass directly without redirection. It is a sound with no interruptions. A sound that, once established, simply continues. The mind has no need to track it because it does not change. It is a surface to rest on, a continuous ground beneath everything else. The planters on the rooftop are filling. The channel you redirected is running now, carrying water from the northeast quadrant of the roof toward the basin you positioned. The seeds in the soil are receiving their first real rain. The city below is being covered by the same rain that falls on the roof and the glass, falling through the amber of the fire's glow, washing the streets in the dark in a slow and indifferent way. Up here in this room, through this glass, the rain is simply a sound, even and present and undemanding. Let the sound be the room's background. Let it replace the processing that the mind has been doing. The mind finds it easier to release when there is something to release into, something present but not demanding, audible but not requiring interpretation. The rain asks nothing. It falls and it continues and it requires nothing from you. Your jaw is loose. The muscles around your eyes have released. The slight habitual compression behind the brow has eased without you directing it. The space behind your eyes, which has been processing everything for 3 days, the window views, the inventory figures, the structural assessments, the distances and the calculations and the decisions, that space is less active now, less insistent. The processing is slowing. There is nothing further to decide tonight. Your legs have pressed themselves into the mattress with a completeness that feels final. They are not going anywhere. They have stated this definitively by their own weight. Your arms are settled on either side of you, their mass distributed into the surface beneath them, not held above it. Your hands are open. Nothing is held. The breath moves through the body on its own. In, out, each cycle requiring a little less from the part of you that monitors cycles. Each out-breath releasing a little more than the one before it. The lungs emptying a little more completely, the diaphragm pressing a little further, the breath going out to a slightly greater depth of expulsion before the next inhalation is permitted to begin. This is the body's own movement towards sleep. It knows the way. It has been doing this for the whole of your life. You are only getting out of the way. The rain against the glass is steady now, fully established. The earlier variability of individual drops long since resolved into the continuous and even sound that rain becomes when it is committed to falling. The wind underneath it is present but softer. The rain has changed the texture of the wind. The way rain always changes the texture of the air, adding weight and direction, and the smell of something clean and old and planetary. The amber from the fires to the east has dimmed as the clouds have thickened with rain, and the light cannot press as easily through the increased water in the air. The room is darker than it was an hour ago. The candle on the nightstand has burned lower, its circle of warmth reduced, its flame small and without competition from the city's glow. The room is approaching the deepest version of its own dark. Your body is very heavy. This is not the heaviness of fatigue in the way that fatigue is uncomfortable. This is the heaviness of completion. The body has completed its day. It has carried you through every task and every room and every decision and every calculation, and now it has set itself down, and the setting down is absolute and rightful, and the weight of it is not a burden but a release. Feel it through every surface that is in contact with the mattress. The total distribution of a body that has stopped needing to hold itself up. A thought of the street may come, as thoughts of the street have come on each of the 3 nights when the mind begins to let go and the images from the day surface without invitation. Let the thought arrive. Observe it from where you are, from this bed, from this floor, from this height. The street is 52 floors below. The elevator cannot move. The stairwell is sealed. The hatch is weighted. The thought belongs to a world that cannot reach you tonight, and you can watch it the way you watch the fires from the window, real and far away, and not requiring a response. Let it continue past the room and out the other side, taking nothing with it and leaving the room unchanged. The breath moves in. The breath moves out. The The room is warm where the body has been making warmth in the enclosed space beneath the blanket. This warmth is entirely yours. The body produces it and the blanket holds it, and it accumulates in the space between them. And by now it is total no cool edge remaining, no uncovered area, the entire system of the body and the bed and the blanket in thermal equilibrium, warm and held and still. The candle gives its last small light. The wick has reached a point of near completion, the flame lower and rounder and more concentrated than it was an hour ago. Soon it will go out on its own, and the room will be lit only by the rain on the glass and the faint muted glow of the distant fires pressing through cloud and rain and 52 floors of vertical distance. The room will be very dark. The rain will be the room's primary sound. The breath will be the room's primary event. Your body has grown so heavy that it is difficult to locate where you end and the mattress begins. The boundary has become unclear in the specific way that boundaries become unclear when they no longer serve a purpose, when the body has stopped needing to know where it stops and the surface starts because the two have come to an arrangement. You are here. The mattress is here. The arrangement is rest. The breath comes in without direction. The breath goes out without effort. The rain continues against the glass, not getting louder or softer, not changing, just continuing, the way rain continues when it has settled into the night with no intention of stopping. The long commitment of autumn rain that falls across the whole city and the roof and the glass and the planters and the streets below, and makes no distinction between any of them, covering everything in the same even dark wet sound. You are above all of it. You are inside the glass, inside the warmth, inside the dark that is gathering in the corners of the room and moving toward the center, inside the weight of a body that has done what was needed today and has nothing further to do tonight. The door is sealed. The shafts are silent. The cables hold the door. The stone holds the hatch. The count is correct. The seeds are in the ground. The water is measured and held. The morning will come and the task list will be there, and the work will continue. But that is the morning and this is the night, and the night requires nothing. The breath moves in. The breath moves out, longer than it came in, the last of the day's air leaving the body in a slow and complete release. And then the next breath begins on its own, without any asking, rising from somewhere below intention, the body breathing itself in the dark while the rain falls on the glass, and the city burns softly in the distance, and the building holds 52 floors of concrete and steel, and inside all of that, in a room that is dark and warm and sealed against the night, a body that has earned its rest is taking it. You are safe here. The door is closed. The rain falls. The night holds you completely. Nothing more is required. There are things you have learned about this building in 3 days that the building's architects did not intend to teach. The way sound travels through the structure at night, not voices or footsteps, nothing that specific, but a low-frequency vibration in the walls that corresponds to the wind loading on the building's face, a kind of deep structural conversation between the concrete and the weather outside. It is not alarming. Once you identified what it was, on the second night, when you pressed your palm flat against the interior wall of the utility corridor and felt it, it became simply another piece of information. The building is talking to the wind. The building is handling the wind. The building has been doing this for decades and will continue doing it, and your presence on the 52nd floor is factored into none of its calculations and affects none of its structural reasoning. This is a particular kind of comfort. The building does not need you to be managing it. It will continue to stand regardless of whether you are anxious or at rest. The concrete is indifferent to your state. The glass is indifferent. The cables you have rigged will hold whether you are asleep or awake, whether you are monitoring them or not. The building will do its work and the cables will do their work and the hatch will stay weighted regardless. The only thing your continued wakefulness accomplishes at this hour is the consumption of a resource that will be needed tomorrow. Let the building do its work. Let the concrete and the steel and the glass and the wind manage their long conversation without your participation. Let the cables be cables without being watched. Let the hatch be weighted without being thought about. These things do not require your attention in order to function. They are already functioning. They will still be functioning when you wake in the morning. What remains, once you have given the building back its autonomy, is only this room. The bed, the pillow, the blanket and the warmth inside it, the rain on the glass continuing its steady coverage of the night, the candle at its last low point on the nightstand, the dark gathering at the room's edges and moving toward the center as the flame reduces, and the city's glow is muted further by the accumulating cloud and rain. What remains is the breath, in and out, each cycle a little further from the surface of waking, a little closer to the depth that the body is moving toward, has been moving toward since you lay down, has been waiting for the mind to stop interfering with. What remains is the warmth, total and undivided, the body producing it and the blanket holding it, and the two of them together making a climate that is entirely separate from the night outside the glass, a small warm system in the dark. What remains is the sound of rain on glass, not varying, not building toward anything, not resolving into anything, simply present, simply falling, simply making the same contact with the same surface at the same rate, which is the sound the room has decided to fill itself with for the remainder of this night. And what remains, underneath all of this, beneath the breath and the warmth and the rain and the gathered dark, is the knowledge that you are as safe as you can make yourself in this world as it currently exists, and you have made yourself very safe, and the work was yours and you did it, and tonight it holds. The breath comes in. The breath goes out. The rain falls on the glass, and the city and the planters and the rooftop and the whole of the night. Sleep now,